So this is my second vlog for my global learning project, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my first interaction with my partner and how our lives differed through education and things like that. So first, we talked about like a typical day, what a typical day was for us in high school. I learned we're very different people. She was constantly busy, constantly doing something, always going, whereas I was more kind of like laid back and didn't really do as much. For her, I learned that like she was sun up to sundown. Her typical day for her was like waking up before, she quoted, before the rooster crows. She does live on a farm, so she was always up early. And she would go to swim practice. And then after swim practice, she would go to school. And for her high school, they had like work study. So she got out at 11 o'clock every day, which is something that I did not have. I had to stay at school from the whole like 7 to 2. But she got out for work study at 11. She would go home and do all her chores like on the farm, like take care of all the animals. And then she would go to another swim practice after that. And then after swim, she worked 2 jobs like every single day. She went from working at Jimmy John's from 5 to 8 every day, and then at 8 o'clock she would work at Sonic till midnight. So she was like sun up to sundown, and then after she got off at midnight, she would go home and she would have to do any type of homework, and then she would go to bed and repeat the whole schedule the next day. Whereas for me, I was getting up, going to school, coming home, going to soccer practice, then coming home. Like I pretty much did the same schedule every day, and I never had to like worry about any of that stuff. So we were completely different spectrums for that. When I asked her like the top 3 things she was worried about in high school, she said she didn't really have any worries. Like she kind of just lived every day. Like it was a new day, and she just kind of lived everything for that moment. Whereas I was always worried about school or soccer. I feel like I was constantly stressed, but I didn't really have to do anything, which was really weird. But and then like as for big tests, I thought it was interesting because the ACT is very enforced in Tennessee, and at least in my high school, it was very strict. It was constantly talked about. They paid for you to take like a free one your junior year, so it was very enforced. Teachers really like prepared you for it. Was for her, she said she didn't take her first ACT until July after she graduated, which I thought was crazy because I personally took it 6 times before I graduated. So that was definitely interesting, and I prepared for it. Like I did tutoring, I did studied constantly for it, whereas she said she literally just walked in and took it. And she said in her hometown it wasn't very like enforced, like I said, which I thought was weird because her town is strict on like education and everything. So that was definitely interesting. That was something I wasn't expecting. I noticed from like sharing pictures with her that she was very outgoing in high school. She was very involved, and I also learned that from talking to her. She was involved in clubs like FFA, FCA, Young Life, so very groups that are very faith-oriented, whereas I kind of didn't involve myself my senior year. I literally kind of just kept to myself and like my few little group of friends. I didn't go out and do many extracurricular activities. I was very much a homebody, so I was always at home doing things with my parents, with my family, which is also something that like we were different from because like my parents are still together, so I was with them a lot. But for her parents are divorced, and she actually did not live at home her senior year. She lived with her uncle, which I thought was really interesting because I can't, like when I was at home, I didn't go like a day without seeing my parents, but she said there were times where she would go a couple of days without seeing hers, which is really different, and I think kind of shaped her in a way to be definitely more independent. And I mean, she went out and, like I said, she worked 2 jobs every day, so that was something like good on her and like prepared her for like a real life. Like she didn't want to depend on her parents at all. Like she wanted to do everything for herself, and like I give her major props for that. Because I think that's how it should be. I wish I would have um, gone out of my comfort zone more in high school. I wish I would have like involved myself more, because now that I look back on it, I think there's a lot of like missed opportunities that I didn't take advantage of. I think if I would have involved myself more and just put myself out there more and got out of my comfort zone, I would have learned a lot more, and I would have grown as a person more, instead of waiting till college to do that. Because even now, like in college, like I struggle with it. And her being a two-sport athlete, she just said she's like everywhere. Like she's president of Rotaract here, so she's always involved in something, and that's something I kind of wish I did. But it's very hard for me to push myself out of my comfort zone and do that. That's definitely something I want to work on, and something that I admire her for doing. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. We just, like I said, I found it very interesting that I think the biggest thing was like the education, like the testing, because that's something that's so huge. And like when I talked to her, her school was very strict on education. Like my senior year, all my classes were kind of a joke. I just kind of went to get by and like get my diploma. But like the ACT was one thing that was strictly forced in my school, whereas for her, like her classes were always like they were always serious, and they needed to be serious and taken seriously. But the ACT wasn't enforced. Like you had to kind of take that upon yourself, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I learned a lot about myself, and I kind of wish she has many qualities that I wish I had. It's kind of something like a lot of things that made me want to grow as a person as well. So yeah, that's basically it. I can't wait to like talk to her more and learn more about like how life was for her and everything. So yeah, I will talk to y'all next time.